we are live. Welcome to the Just Joking podcast. I am one half of the podcast king,
And I'm Joe.
and thank you for tuning in. If you are watching this on YouTube or Facebook, welcome. If you are listening to this on the audio version after we go live, we put the audio version of our podcast onto all major podcasting platforms using anchor.fm. So we thank you for watching and or listening. And today Joe and I originally had something else planned. We had other topics that we had planned on covering. But if you've been keeping up with the news, then you will know that for most of our adult life, um, our country's fighting forces have had some hand in being over in Afghanistan. It's been a lot of lives lost, a lot of money spent, and a lot of change in most people's lives that were either directly affected over here and over there, as well as generations, that have came down afterwards. And recently, there's been some changes to their government that a lot of people have had a lot of things to, say about it. And Joe and I are both veterans that served after 9/11 that have had, time over in Afghanistan. And we wanted to come on and talk about how it affected us, as well as give any viewers that might be watching us live the opportunity to discuss their thoughts on it as well. Um, Joe typically doesn't know the subject before we go live, but right when we were coming on and planning this, he asked me, he said, "Hey, so are we going to talk about Afghanistan?" I said, "Damn, Skippy, man. That tells me a lot. It tells me that you have some thoughts as well, because me and you haven't directly talked about it yet, right? I don't
Yeah.
think we
No,
have."
no, we haven't had a chance.
Yep. So let's get um, right into it, man. Give the viewers your perspective on how you grew up. I know we've talked about our service in the past, but for people that might be tuning in to this for the first time, what is your experience like being in the military and in Afghanistan?
So, to clarify, I haven't been to Afghanistan.
Okay.
All of my time was in Iraq. But I spent a lot of time with people who've been to Afghanistan and to Iraq. And honestly, I think we feel or felt the same way about the drawdown of Iraq and Afghanistan. Like it's the same feeling. Um, when we were pulling out of Iraq, we did it a little bit cleaner, maybe. I don't know what they did different this time around, or if the Taliban was really just waiting, impatient, like just waiting for everybody to leave. But it didn't happen the same way. But the anxiety was the same. The feeling was the same. Um, so I feel a lot of the same thing I felt then when Iraq shut down. I thought about all my time there. I thought about the people we lost there. What did it all mean? What was it all for? And I think that's what a lot of people are feeling now, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
It's I spent time there. I sacrificed this. I sacrificed that. We lost people. People bled in these countries for other people. It there's a lot of things we call into question at times like this. So it really makes you. I don't have a right to feel anxious about Afghanistan. I that's how I feel. That doesn't necessarily make it true. I served in the military pre and post 9/11, and my entire career really floated around these two conflicts, because most people's careers floated around these two conflicts. Uh, m- Many people had multiple deployments to Iraq, including multiple deployments to Afghanistan, or just one or the other. But their careers always came back to going to those places, because that's what was going on. That was what was happening. It was it was, it was what everybody dealt with. So,
Yeah, yeah, man. And we always had the saying that when you were back home and you weren't deployed, at least for my job, being that we were considered expeditionary forces, right? We weren't tied to a certain time over there. Is we were force enablers, force multipliers that would get people in and out of country.
yeah.
So you had to be worldwide deployable at a moment's notice, and that is how we operated. When you were home, you were training or ensuring that you were prepped and ready to go back out the door at a moment's notice for support of OIF and or
Oh,
OEF,
yeah, yeah.
depending on where you deployed to
And
and
you had to be able
what
to do
country
it
that
within
you
the
went to.
72 hours.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yep.
9/11 happened, the day of, and I mean, this is what it's going to bring back. It's going to bring back all these memories of the beginning of this. If your career went back that far, you know what I mean? Or even just to the beginning of your career, if you're a post 9/11 service member or veteran, it brings me back to 9/11. It brings me back to the day it happened, and it brings me back to that day after we picked our jaw off the floor and shook the shock out of our heads. We were packed. Let me tell you, my unit was ready to go the very next day. Like, they say 72 hours. We were like, before the government even really figured out what the hell we were going to do or what we were going to say or whatever, we were packed. We were like, all right, guys, look, this sucks. We're all sad. We're all stressed. We're all angry. Pack your shit, because you know what's going to happen. And we were ready. And it didn't play out that way for us. We went a little bit later. So, we packed, we unpacked, we packed, we unpacked. We did lots of that, because that's just how it is.
Hurry up
But
and wait.
yeah, a ton of that. But it brings me back to that mentality, to that's what I think is the problem. Like, in my heart, my anxiety is up, man. Like, I'm just thinking about all these things, the last 20 years of just chaos. But when 9/11 happened, and this is what people forget, this is what I think, why people feel the way they feel now, this sense of loss. When 9/11 happened, we were angry, and we were ready to do something to the people who hurt us.
Hmm.
The American people were like, get him, go get him. Like, we know who it is now. Doesn't matter if it was true or not. We knew that these people were associated with the people who were doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
All right, whatever, government, it doesn't matter what you believe, or whatever. We had a clear mission: go out and do it. And we did it. And the American people were behind us. They're like, go get them, boys, girls, go get them. And we did. And despite all the politicking and everything that changed in the 20 years that it happened, we lost the backing of the American people. And even though the American people weren't necessarily against us, a lot of us felt, and I've made this comparison before. I really have, and I hate that it's true and it's correct. But I've compared this to Vietnam. The only difference is we're not being demonized the way they demonized the troops coming home from Vietnam.
Hmm.
They blame the troops, when we all know the truth. It wasn't the troops' fault. Like, the anti-war sentiment was aimed at the troops, because the politicians and the government was really good at just not taking responsibility for the failures of what was going on. This time around, we're pissed off at the generals. We're pissed off at the president, even though it's not technically this president's fault. Although, I mean, how many presidents are we going to blame? It's been 20 years. Who's really to blame here? The only difference is we're not blaming the troops. Thank God. I hope nobody's blaming the troops because that's not fair. All we've ever done is what we were told to do.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
I think the majority of us, the bulk of us, we did that with excellence. We did it with the professionalism you would expect an ambassador of the United States to perform in another country, you know, amongst people who don't even want us there. And we did a damn good job. And that's the thing that people have to remember. We did what we had to do. We did what we were told to do, and we did it well. And we saved some lives, like we lost some, but we saved lives too.
Hmm.
I wish we could save more even now. And I know there's guys out there, and God bless them. There's people out there right now breaking laws and making deals and doing whatever they can to take care of the people who took care of us while we were there. The people who deserve a second chance and the people who deserve a chance to be free and to be alive. So, to those people doing what they got to do right now to make that happen, thank you, because I think that'll take the edge off for some of us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I think I think that's what we got to cling to. Like that we did what we were supposed to do and we did it well. And I mean that's the most somebody can expect from anybody. How many, like if anybody is out there in this country right now criticizing troops or criticizing the government or criticizing the military or even criticizing Afghanistan, the fact that the first thing you have to ask yourself is, did you do anything to contribute to the success of any of this? You can have all the criticism in the world. This is a global conflict that was localized to two nations. And you had the sons and daughters of America in those countries doing the best they could with what they had. Because let's be honest, in the beginning, it was absolute Wild West. It took a long time. I mean, the guys in Afghanistan with Korengal Valley and just those insane battles. Like thinking about all that blood and sweat and tears and loss, and I mean, it's hard to not feel like it was for nothing. It's hard to think of my friends who I won't see again and think that they died for nothing. And it's there's so much to unpack, and it's like 20 years of resentment and anger. It's hard to cling on to the good feelings when you have all these years of all of this, and this is what happens at the end.
Yes. Now, for people that haven't really been following the news, I'm going to add a little bit to more to what Joe has been saying and why we both feel very similar to this subject. 20 years of being a integral, I can't never say that word right,
Integral.
integral part of trying to help stabilize that country. All right. It came apart in less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks. Literally, that's 11 days by all accounts of things that I've been reading. 11 days. That's less than a government pay period. 11 damn days undone of the Afghan government after 19 plus years of trying to help stabilize that country. That's what is causing people to ask themselves, what the hell was it for? That's the part that are making a good amount of people upset. That's the word on the street that I'm hearing, and certain groups that I'm in is they're wanting to know what the hell was it for if all of it can come undone in 2 weeks.
A heartbeat, really. And the thing about it too is like when when they announced this was going to happen, when we were going to withdraw, what was the first thing the general consensus was in the news? Was the Americans wanted this. Americans were happy. It's done. Let's get our boys home. Our boys and girls, excuse me. And in a way, they weren't wrong for wanting that. After 20 years, when does it end? But to want that, and then like 2 weeks later, when it all goes to shit, you're like, oh, you did it wrong. It's like, you're not a military expert. You got what you wanted. Just because it didn't play out the way you wanted doesn't mean it was, I think we could have done better. But ultimately, the power was relinquished. The power was in their hands. And the speed with which they fell apart tells me they didn't fight back.
Hmm.
Because you could have held a city for a week. You could have held Kabul. You could have held it. All the shit we left behind that they just suddenly have, like you didn't put up a fight to protect any of that stuff. You didn't destroy it. We would have destroyed it if we had to retreat past a location. We would have burned it all to the ground, left them with nothing to reinforce.
A smart, intelligent, tactical decision would have been to have done that. And I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Take as much of it with you as you can and burn the rest. Because ultimately that's what's going to have to happen. But my thing is you could tell first and foremost the president left like immediately, which he had no confidence in any of the military. I mean, what else was he going to do anyways? And if any American thinks our presidents, any of them, or any of our politicians would still be here right now if a coup happened, they'd be on the first boat smoking.
Yeah.
They'd be out of here so quick to
Hmm.
anywhere without extradition. They'd be out of here so fast. So I don't judge him too heavily, except that he is also still a failure. You got to recognize that right off the jump. I mean, he'd be a dead failure if he didn't flee. But
True.
he's still a failure regardless of his status. But I mean, and he's not the only one who fled. Let's be real there. A lot of people did not show up to work when the Taliban came a knocking.
Mhm. Either they go to work or they did, but even slip, slip off this uniform and look like every. I don't want this smoke.
Yep.
And that was one of the main points that I had, was that the sense of nationalism, right? That pride that we're not going to allow this group to come in and jack this up for us. 20 years, that's enough time to maybe try to catch a generation, to get those younger people to grow older, to be a little bit more bolder, to essentially keep this rogue. I don't call them a rogue element because the Taliban's established, right? They have a structure about them that allows them to have power, and they use that power to get what they want. Let's state that as something that's fair to say about them. It's not like they're this small thing that's been here, lurking and just came out of nowhere. They're a threat for a reason. But you
But
know
I've
the
seen I've seen Iraq soldiers drop their weapons and flee at the first sign of conflict,
Mhm,
with Americans backing them up. Like with us there, they would just drop their weapons and go.
mhm.
Some of them would even take their weapons, jump in their car, and drive away. And that's what's happening here. You got to
Hold on, Joe.
very
Real
yeah. Go
quick,
ahead. Go ahead.
because I know you'll agree with this. People that are born and raised in the Bronx, All right. Let some outside element try to come in and tell them or change their culture. I can see babies, babies picking up something, you know what I'm saying, and being like, we're not about to let this go down like
I
that
don't know
for,
what it is.
some belief, so that mentality, where I believe you are about to go,
Yeah.
I, I don't understand how we couldn't have helped their culture
Mm,
attain that type of mentality so that they can stand up for themselves. There has been video. There has been video of a soldier, but that's the minority though, of a soldier saying, "I'm not laying down my weapons for you guys. I'm not doing it. Just defiant to the end." And the clip stopped before you could understand, like, well, what
he,
happened to that guy?
we
I
know
don't
what
think it
happened to
ended.
him.
Yeah, I don't think it ended well for him.
No,
There is clips
but
that I've
that's the
seen
reality.
of the women in cages, or if they looked a certain way or didn't conform to a certain way, stories of they're done. You know,
Yeah.
and where are the group of people that we helped bring that culture of fighting for, your own nation and your own culture? um how did we miss that?
I
How
don't.
did we miss that?
I don't think nationalism is a thing for them. It's not about nationalism where they live. It's about religion. When they get to still practice their religion under this guy or that guy, doesn't matter to them. They will support the person least likely to murder them. They will fight.
I don't even mean to laugh, but that's just funny.
They will fight in so much as this option is better than this option. So we'll fight for the option that's better. But it's not a democracy thing there. They don't care if it's democracy. They care about being able to live. So as Americans, if somebody from another country comes here and they're like, let's say the Chinese government decides they want to attack America. First off, let's be honest, that's going to be a long fight because every swinging dick is going to come out of their house with a gun and fight, like
Hmm.
fight. And let's hope it's a decent fight if that ever happens. But they have a completely different way of living. They have a completely different mindset for nationalism and religion and government. Completely different ways of thinking. Not the ones who live here, the ones from China who live in China. They will do anything for their country. Anything. They will lie, cheat, and steal for their country.
Hmm.
We don't have the same values. So if they came here and they took over, we'd pretty much know we're done. We're donezo. Like we'd have to completely like conform to whatever the new overlord would be, right? That isn't what's happening here. These people are going from this form of religion to this form of religion. They're not changing. So as long as these people aren't like telling them their life is going to dramatically change, there's nothing to really fight over. It's it's like they'll say something because you're here and they're like, yeah, we'll fight with you, because you're here and you got big guns and you got all this training. We'll fight. We'll fight with you. As soon as you leave, they're just like, but why? I mean, it's not like they're telling me I got to change the way I live. They want to be in control, and this guy doesn't want to. He just left the country. Why am I going to fight? They're going to murder my family. I'm just going to do that religion. Is a little bit stricter? All right, it's a little bit stricter. I'll just, make sure we have no human rights. That's fine. I mean, but my religion is intact. So I mean, ugh. I-
Uh, Something that you talked about earlier is at our level, right? We did our job, and for a majority of the people, they did their job with integrity and honor. All right.
yeah,
Um, there's a That's being done. It's called being tactical, right? We operate at the tactical level. My job wasn't a decision maker on pretty much anything except for deciding things within the realm of what I got ordered to do by those appointed over me. All right. At the strategic level, you have your colonels, you have your generals, you have your senators and congressmen that make up our national defense security strategy. All right. So those are the guys that you know, put a strategy in place, and they've got all of these different scenarios and stuff that they're running on, why we need to go here, what's the amount of fighting force that we need to make this happen, how do we finance this, what's our exit strategy. At least
don't
they
forget, don't forget. They also take into account what is acceptable loss.
yes,
So
and
for all the American people who think that our politicians and our generals are these sweethearts, they also have to say, we're going to do this battle. We've estimated we're going to lose 50,000 people, but that's acceptable loss. So we're going to still go through with this. Just
mhm.
let's just remember that we are acceptable losses.
And I'm glad you brought that up because one of my main points are it's the strategic level thinkers that have to make those
Yeah.
choices and
And ultimately,
decisions.
those are decisions they have to make.
And
Like, you don't have
and
to
they
like
have
it.
to make it, like it or not. They also have to be comfortable sleeping at night with those decisions,
Yeah.
understanding, that families could want answers for the decision that they made to go into a certain country,
Yeah.
or send this unit to kick in this door because this insurgent was here, and this insurgent is important to take off the board, if you will, because of X, Y, and Z. But then the mission doesn't work right, loss of life happens. We've seen that story play out. My point in even kind of bringing all of this is I'm going to share this screen, right? So this is a Bloomberg article, and it talks about rapid collapse of Afghan forces wasn't foreseen. Now, U.S. intelligence, along with uh, what's the word, cooperating units like other national countries, like there's intel that's being shared,
Yeah.
across nations. All right, but we have briefings daily. I don't know their battle cadence schedule, how often these things happen, where they give like the best case scenario, worst case scenario, and information flows up and down channels. The thing that I can say is I'm pretty sure that not all of the information that should be flowing up flows up, because they have to kind of filter that stuff,
Mhm.
to a certain degree. You filter the things to the decision makers, um, to try to be as fair and as biased as possible. I don't know how Intel operates. I don't know. My job, we would get intelligence briefings related to the areas that we were flying over. And sometimes we'd have background as to why we were doing a particular mission. But for the most part, uh, based off of the information that we got, we would know that, hey, there's other things that are in play that's not just, that's a small piece in the wheel for why we're here doing this, to help funnel these group of people here, or help get these people to safety that needs to, move from point A to point B. Um, and you have a report like this that says that there are not reports that I am aware of that predicted a security force of 300,000 would evaporate in 11 days. And
Mhm.
that was a statement made by our current chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff. General Mark Milley. I believe it. I would. I would hope that the reports and the assessment was done. All right, but it may have never made its way to the good old general's desk. Because somebody at some level might have filtered it, and he just didn't get that brief. I would believe that statement because I understand how information flows up and down.
But also, how are they going to guess or analyze whether the force is going to fall apart or not? They have 300,000 troops that they're tracking. They're tracking 300,000 Afghanistan troops, right? Okay. They're tracking 70,000 Taliban, right? That's a far inferior force. And the Afghanistan military had all of the equipment that we left behind, including whatever equipment that they had, you know, in their arsenal, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way the report reflected that they would lose. There's no way they could tell that people would just flee and not show up for work and just, not put up a fight. There's no way to analyze that at the strategic level.
Mm-hmm.
You get down to the micro level, the tactical level, and there's a lot of people who would have told you they're just going to fall apart.
I only laugh because I, at the tactical level, I think plain as day, as you're talking about this, and you would have somebody like us listening to this, we probably had this look like, uh, you know that that's gonna go that way, right?
Yeah,
It's not going to be good, boss.
yeah.
We have
But
somebody in the comments, man. Esther Garcia stated that it's almost like it was planned to let this happen with the face.
see, and I'm with you. Like I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it was planned to let this happen. I think it was they couldn't do anything to stop it from happening. And they knew that. I think they absolutely knew that. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that at the top level the reports are like, "Look guys, it's going to go well because they outnumber the enemy, 2 to 1." But everybody who had any first-hand experience in Afghanistan and Iraq would have told you they're going to fall apart. So it's not that they planned to let it happen, it's that they didn't have a plan to prevent it from happening. You know what I mean? And for us, sitting back here, it sure feels like this is some kind of conspiracy or some kind of crazy nonsense. But all it really is there was no end state.
Hmm.
And these guys were chomping at the bit to wait for us to leave. And the minute which tells you how cowardly they are, they knew they couldn't beat us.
Hey, you say cowardly, I say strategic as shit.
Strategic, sure. You know, Debo want my bike. He can take my bike. He tell me shut up. I'm gonna shut up. But when you walk away, I'm gonna talk again.
I'm gonna talk.
But I mean, but that's what this is. Let's be honest. That's what this is. Strategic, sure, but only in so much that you can't beat your enemy. It's not like they're David and Goliath. You know what I mean? There was no way they were ever going to win because we were better. Everybody we left behind, we thought we could make better. But they have to have something they want to fight for more than they were willing to let just happen. And that we can't give to people.
Mm-hmm.
That's like their ideology. We can't change that, right? We're not trying to. We want you to, practice what you want to practice. What we want to give you is nationalism, a sense of fighting for your country, believing in your nation. But you can't give that to them. I, mm, I don't know. It's honestly, nobody really does nationalism like Americans do, and when Americans do it, they do it wrong.
Huh. um, I think that it's a bit interesting as things is happening
Yeah.
around that things are happening around the world. You know, we come out of the 2020 Olympics, even though we're in 2021,
Hmm.
where when you have the Summer Olympics anyway, every 4 years, you get a lot of people that have that sense of nationalism, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, but there's also a lot of unity that I think comes out of it as well. On my Facebook page, somebody that I'm connected to knows someone that is Afghani, but also a veteran. All
Hmm.
right. And I wished I had this up because they had a real unique perspective that I would love to read on here. So while I look for that, Joe, um, what do you think is eh, eh, now that we are where we are, what's next? You know, let's say we get to where we have accepted that, you know what, shit's just messed up. All right. And uh, what happened has happened. How do you think that our nation should respond to what's happened going forward?
Three things. So, first, the publicity campaign has already started from the Taliban to be recognized. The first thing they're going to want to be is recognized as a legitimate political party, right? And they've already started their campaign by saying they're going to give women rights and they're going to give amnesty to all of the interpreters. That's what they're saying. That's the news articles that are coming out. Like they want to be recognized as a legitimate political party. So they want to be recognized when they take over. They want to be recognized as the president or high priest of Afghanistan, right? So that's the
Okay.
first thing that's going to happen. Second thing that's going to happen is the American people are going to completely fucking forget. Like
Hmm.
in a week, let's say a week, something's going to come up, some political scheme, or somebody else is going to get accused of sexual harassment because apparently our politicians are just incapable of keeping their penises to themselves. Um, the American people are just going to forget. It's not going to matter to the American people in like a week. So it
That's
matters.
I agree with you on that.
It matters to us. We're going to feel this for quite some time, but the American people as a whole is going to forget and move on and find something else to be pissed at because that's just what Americans do. And the third thing is, I think I don't know what America is going to do in response to this,
Hmm.
but I'm pretty sure in a few months we're going to find some dialogue with the Taliban to come up with a peaceful coexistence. So shit like 9/11 doesn't happen again, even though the people from Afghanistan have nothing to do with the shit from 9/11. But that's what's going to happen. It's the outrage is going to die down and go away. The Americans are just going to walk past this like it's just a crack in the sidewalk. And to save face, politicians will break down walls and connect with the people of Afghanistan to create a peaceful coexistence. And it'll all sound great on paper, but it's all shit. And all of us who have been to these places is going to recognize it for what it is, because you could polish a turd all day long, cover it in gold, it's still a turd, doesn't matter. But the American people are going to be like, oh, look, see, and you guys thought it was so bad when the Taliban took over. Yeah, it was bad. It was fucking bad. People are dying. It's bad. Just because now that they stopped killing people and said they're going to do a few nice things doesn't take away everything else that they did.
Hmm.
but because it doesn't affect the American people, they don't feel anything about it other than making them feel good about themselves that something is going well. So those are the three things I think that are going to happen. My timing might be a little off, but by the end of the year, we're probably going to be friends with the Taliban.
Yes, I that last statement. I think strategically
What else are we going to do?
there
Send more
ne-
troops?
there needs to be some type of alliance and talks
Yeah,
because ultimately, ultimately, right? Well, what's the reason for caring? All right. It's so that they don't do things that can mess up our way of life. That's why we care. You
yeah.
know that,
That's
and like,
really,
and that's a basic form of just saying that. It's so that they don't become, you know, powerful enough to come and f us up. You know, that's why we care.
yeah.
So if the Taliban is now in power, you know, or will be in power, eh, let's play nice with them. I didn't say play nice with them.
What else are we going to do? We going to go
Let's
back? Like,
yep.
you know what I mean? Like, we going to go back? What are we going to do? It's the only thing to be done at this point. Let them finish what they're doing. They're going to talk about sending more troops over there. What's that going to do? Where are they going to go? Where are they going to hang out? We don't have any embassies left, I think. I think they took the last one. Like, and if they haven't yet, they will soon. We haven't evacuated. Like, you can't tell me we haven't evacuated the embassies. So where are we going to send these troops to? Where are they going to hide out? Where are they going to sleep? Who are they going to fight?
Who are we going to partner with that can help make that transition, you know,
Yeah,
as seamless as possible?
this isn't a hostile alien takeover. This is the people who know this country are just walking right back into where they were before we got there. So I mean, what else is there to do but be friends with these new people who are in charge?
Yep. I got the thing up and I'm going to read it. I wanted to try to see if I could. Give me a second. Let me see if I can block this. Well, it's public to that person's page, but I'm going to block out the original person that sent this. So let me share that, and I want to read this. This guy said, "Being half Afghan myself and an OEF veteran, I think it is beneficial to have these conversations. A relative of mine shared this, and I'll paraphrase it here. Alleviating suffering is never in vain, even if the final outcome isn't permanent. I know a young lady from Afghanistan who recently attended the same boarding school I went to in Europe and is now about to graduate from college here in the States. This is because she was able to get an education while a child in Afghanistan, which she would not have been able to do without the sacrifice of you and your brothers and sisters. I know a family of refugees down the road who were able to start a new life here 7 years ago. They would also not have had that opportunity without the work of our service members who served in Afghanistan. These are just two examples out of millions. There are countless success stories of young women getting an education, becoming successful, and thriving. The mission for a permanent peace may have failed. It may have been unrealistic and impossible, but striving towards that mission helped a lot of people over the past 20 years, and that should not be forgotten. A lot of mistakes were made in our campaign there, but I don't want a service member to think that their service and sacrifice there was in vain. If a doctor treats a cancer patient and it gets into remission for 20 years, only for the patient to succumb after that, it doesn't mean that the doctor's work didn't matter. You and your brothers and sisters held back this cancer for 20 years. That at least should be remembered. And when I read that, man, I was like, that is a very well written sentiment from some person,
Yeah,
you know, that wraps up succinctly in what's that, three paragraphs,
yeah,
how I feel. How I feel.
yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that, man?
I think it says it really well. I think what he had to say was deep and meaningful, and I hope that it helps the few people who get to see what he has to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on our time. There, you know what? There's a couple of different things that I didn't get into. So let me take this off the screen first. Since we do have some time, let me bring this down, move that out. Let's play what if.
Sure.
What if we do send folks back over there? How do you think the country gets behind it?
I think what goes down is we start playing nice now instead of by the end of the year. We're never going to send enough people to do anything. These people are probably going to function as ambassadors to establish a line of communication between us and the Taliban. I think that's the only way this doesn't end in a massacre.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, you send 3,000 troops, and what does that do? 3,000 against 75,000. We've already seen what a handful of them can do given enough time and preparation. So maybe this just the olive branch or the hey, all right, you guys are in charge. We get it. Shake hands, tell us what you want, or tell us how we can make this amicable. You get the kids, we get the house. Or you get the house, we get the kids.
Um, have you seen some of the pictures of the C-17s that have been stuffed with people flying out of Afghanistan?
And I've seen the videos of the people falling from the outside of the aircraft. Um, that's what freedom looks like, man. Freedom is something people will die for.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I think, and hear me out, because I'm not saying this is what should happen, but if all of those people, and not the women and children, unless you're American and you recognize that women can fight too, um, but you put a rifle in every last one of those persons' hands, why couldn't they put up a fight? Like, not all of them are soldiers. Like, I get that. But when this country was formed, nobody was a soldier yet, right? Nobody was in the army. Nobody was in the Navy or the Marines or the Air Force or the Space Force. Nobody was one of those things, but they were willing to fight and die for freedom. What's the difference here? 2,000 years later, or 1770, you know what I mean? It's 200 some odd years after the formation of our country, you know, they're not like, oh, like we were willing to fight and die 240 years ago. They're not willing to die, not die, but fight, you know? They'd rather die falling out of the end, out of this off of a C-17. Like, and I guess maybe that's the soldier in me, you know what I mean? Thinking about fighting rather than giving up or or turning tail and running. Because, like I said, if somebody came to America tomorrow, Americans are not just going to flee. They're not going to run. We're going to send the people who can't fight away so that they don't have to die. But we're going to fight. We're going to stay and we're going to fight, and that's what we will do to protect what we have. What's the difference between us and them? Like, I don't understand the difference. Should they have to fight? No, it's an unfair situation and a terrible circumstance. But that's the reality. And the first choice, the first option is to run. Even after 20 years of us saying, you got this. Here's the training. Here's the weapons. Here's the vehicles. Here's the training. You know what I mean? Here's the change. Here's the democracy. Here's how things can work. And in 2 weeks, I don't know, man. I don't know.
There's
I
a
don't, and
go ahead.
I don't want people to think I'm heartless. Like I want these people to survive and live. But if you can't get on those planes, what else are you going to do? Like, are you just going to give up then? Like let's say let's say every single person who didn't make it on that airplane will now die. Why not fight? Why not take some of them with you? Because you know that's what they're going to do to you. So fight, do something. And people might say, "Oh, why don't you do something?" I did.
I did. We did.
You know,
We
we did.
did. There,
We did.
there's um a picture that I saw and somebody that shared something that said that as of right now, between of folks who are age 25 to like 55 or something like that, that there are two kinds of people. There are those that look at their DD 214 that see what their reenlistment code is that can determine if they can go back and fight. And there are those that look at their DD 214 that looks at their reenlistment code to see if there's no way in hell they can go back and fight. And because of our sense of humor, we can laugh about that.
Yeah.
Like it's funny, but it's not, you know what I'm saying, at the same time. But I saw somebody make that post, and this guy was a Marine. He had served on the ground in Afghanistan and Iraq and was fortunate enough to make it back. And I'm not going to put his name out there, but he's said publicly, at least on his social media, that he wouldn't be quick to go back, you
No.
know, and and and
Physically, I
he
couldn't
has
do
a
it
right
anymore.
to feel that way. I'm not going to judge anybody on where they stand with this, because their experiences are theirs. You know, their
Yeah.
thoughts are theirs,
Yeah.
and I respect anyone for, you know, feeling how they feel about it. There is a picture I want to share because there's a way to this picture that made me go, "That's a fair question." So I'm gonna take a, I'm gonna share this, see if I can make this bigger. This is apparently a picture of a C-17 stuffed with Afghanistan nationals on a US C-17. All right, and that's a big passenger slash cargo aircraft. And somebody made a comment that has been massively upvoted now that says those look like a lot of men in fighting age on that aircraft there. Why aren't they fighting for their country? And I could not get that comment out of my head, man.
Yeah.
I could not get that because I mean, I'm taking a look. I don't know these men and women's ages. There's children here as well,
I,
but
s-
these look like able bodied
I,
dudes.
I said the same thing about the Syrian refugees. There was an awful
Mm.
lot of fighting age males that just fled their country
Hmm.
instead of staying and fighting. I mean, I don't understand. I don't get it. It's just not we just don't have the same mind frame. You know what I mean?
Nope.
Like it's we're different. It wouldn't happen here. I think if an enemy ever thought about trying to take us, they just nuke us because they know that a ground war would just be it would take forever.
Hmm.
It just wouldn't work.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Um, I want to end our podcast on this note. I have one more thing to share, and I think that this is valuable for anybody out there. The VA, in my opinion, put out a really good, well thought out email about resources that veterans can use, or even people associated, you know, with veterans, because it wasn't just military people that, you know, went to Iraq or Afghanistan. There were civilians that,
Hmm.
you know, uh, did their part over there as well, you know, that may have seen or experienced something. And the VA put out this email. I don't think I can make it bigger, but there are plenty of resources that are available for veterans. That if you need to talk to somebody, seek counsel, seek some, you know, type of help, know that there are people and advocates for you that will be an ear or assist you in any kind of way of just helping you maybe get the thoughts that are in your head that you may not know how to convey it, just to get it out, that might help you or get you the right tools that you need to make the thoughts that you have in your head less of a burden. All right. So I'm going to scroll through these here real quick. So some of these I've used or I've been a part of and can personally vouch, like Team Red, White, and Blue. I know is really awesome. I've done some volunteering with them. I've been to some of the vet centers to have an understanding of what the vet centers offered. My personal opinion is they're fantastic. A majority of them are staffed with other veterans,
Yeah.
people that have all ranges of experience. You know what I'm saying? That can assist in getting you any of the help that you need. And there's all other kinds of things here that are great resources. And I want to make it known. Reach out, you know, contact these resources. They are there. And know that you're not the only one out there that feels some type of way about what happened and how things unfolded. And use your means of communications to talk about it with other people if you have to, like how we're doing here.
Yep.
So that's what I've got for our show today, Joe. Um, it's always good for people to come together and talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what side of the coin that you fall on. I think if you can have a respectful dialogue about it and share your opinions, then you can contribute to the discussion, and maybe, just maybe, you know, the powers that be that have to make some of these decisions, if you know that they're listening, it can possibly be a force for you that can help you know that, hey, you know what, man, our country is at least listening to the average American. There are people that think that they don't. And it sucks being me because I'm a guy that can see both sides of anything, right? And I can legit hear one person's way of thinking and go, I can see that. And then hear the other person's way of thinking and go, I can see that too. And it's not that I'm trying to, be a middleman or anything like that. It's more, there's a term for it, man, and I forget exactly what it is, but I'm somebody that can be swayed for either side and still have my own opinion and respect both sides. Uh, Outside of big stuff like I murdered this person because I didn't like the way that they smiled,
Yeah.
I can see both sides of a disagreement and respect, why that person has their opinions
Yeah.
on the
Yeah. Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. Totally.
So, look, for the people that tuned in, thanks for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks on the Just Joking podcast. For the people that are tuning in on audio platform, email us. Let us know what you thought about this episode. If you The email address will be in the show notes because I don't know it off the top of my head, but they will be in the show notes. If you've made it this far and you want to chime in by sending us an email or go to our YouTube channel, Just Joking Podcast, leave some comments down into the comment section, or go to our public facing YouTube page, Just Joking Podcast, and leave a comment under the episode that you watched. That's all I've got. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.